Welcome back, everybody. This Week in America on the Blue Funk Broadcasting Radio Network. Great to have you with us on the program today. Back with us, Sharon and Gary Worrell. They've co-authored Sexual Addiction, One Couple's Journey to Discover the Strategies for Healing. Very personal story of sexual addiction and their own complex journey. Gary has a master's degree in community counseling. Sharon, a board-certified in biblical counseling with an emphasis on sexual healing. In their private practice, they use a divide-and-conquer method of counseling. Gary counseling men, Sharon women. Sharon is president of a nonprofit organization, Strategies for Healing Hearts. They've been married for 30 years, have been recovered from sexual addiction for 10 years. Their passion is educating people about sexual addiction. Their website is strategiesforhealing.com, which we'll mention throughout the program. Gary, Sharon, welcome to the program. Great to have you back with us.
Thank you, Rick. Thank you for having us.
Enjoyed the book, and there is so much very valuable information there. And Gary, I want to start with you. Let's define sexual addiction, because some people may be surprised at what the definition actually is.
Sexual addiction is where a person is disconnected from the actual, not only action of sexual intercourse or interaction and intimacy with their partner, spouse, but sexual addiction is twofold. It can be where I withhold the sexual activity and intimacy with my wife, or it can be where I engage with sexual activity outside of the marriage or outside the relationship. So it is twofold.
In the book, Sexual Addiction, I know, Sharon, you talk about sexual anorexia. It's an interesting term. Explain what that means.
Well, sexual anorexia is the terminology that is like a co-diagnostic piece with sexual addiction, meaning that the addict withholds sexual intimacy or emotional relationship from their primary partner because of the fantasy that's going on in his head and the connection that he has with his acting out behaviors, or his or her, because addicts can be both male or female.
And the statistics that you have in the book are really startling. And Gary, there's a couple that jump out. I'm going to start with one here. 47% of people report that pornography is a problem in their families. Obviously, 47, you're almost pushing half the families in the country. That's a staggering statistic.
Well, the sad part, Rick, is I bet you that statistic probably is higher now because, like I said, that was taken a few years ago.
I mean, that's absolutely amazing. And you deal with this every day. Is that the problem? There's so much out there, and we'll talk about that. You've got websites. You have access to this literally 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Is the availability, is that the factor that we're seeing maybe now close to 50% of families that have a problem?
Yes, it could be on cell phones, smartphones, laptops, iPads. I'm sorry, almost any kind of device out there that has any kind of internet access is now being used.
Well, and the internet has also created an interactive way of doing things where with sexual addiction, people don't have to go out to adult bookstores anymore. You don't have to go out and buy a magazine. You have it in the secrecy of your own home.
In fact, sometimes when you're on the internet, depending on where you're looking, it's almost hard to avoid. It sort of jumps out of nowhere and trying to entice you.
Exactly. What we really encourage a lot of our clients and people that are listening is that they really, in their best interest, should have what we call blocking software that is able to block that kind of information and pop-ups, because not only is it going to be a trigger, but it is going to be so destructive because you never know when it's going to happen.
Yeah, I notice that as you're on the computer, but all of a sudden there's something there enticing you, and suddenly you're realizing, no, wait a minute, I don't like where this is going. Our guest on the program, Sharon and Gary Worrell. Their book is very simple. It's to remember sexual addiction, One Couple's Journey to Discover the Strategies for Healing. It's available at their website, strategiesforhealing.com. Also, of course, available at amazon.com. We're going to get into the personal story that's in the book, along with and we're finding out as we're going on the program here that this really impacts a number of families. The book is a very valuable resource, and you can get more information on the book at the Amazon website. Sharon, one other statistic that jumped out at me as I'm looking at this, 70% of those surveyed in Christian families said that they would struggle with pornography on a daily basis. And that's in families that sort of are watching and trying to protect against this.
Well, I think in some ways, Rick, we have really, we've kind of put our head in the sand. We kind of feel like, sexual addiction isn't something that that Christian families struggle with, because we project a more moral code. But honestly, our young people are being inundated with it through technology. Our society seems to be inundated with it, and the church is being inundated with it, but they don't seem to be addressing it.
You're listening to This Week in America, the program devoted to sexual addiction, one couple's journey to discover the strategies for healing. That's the book written by our guest, Gary and Sharon Worrell. The website is strategiesforhealing.com. Gary, let's go into what actually is sort of totally focused in the book, and that's that what you call the night of discovery, when you actually had to make that phone call to your wife that you have been arrested, you're being detained at the police department. Explain briefly what happened that night, and then we'll talk about your experiences afterwards that probably so many people can relate to.
The evening started out where I was in such denial that I thought I was just, casually meeting with a woman to talk to her. And of course, it was not a casual meeting. It was not something that was innocent. And the police officer arrested me and took me to jail and charged me with solicitation of a prostitute. When you're in jail, you only get one phone call. And I felt that the only person I could call was my wife. And unfortunately, that's when my whole world caved in on me.
And Sharon's as well. Sharon, explain your reaction when you get that phone call. I think, first of all, you were tipped off something wasn't right when you looked at caller ID. But here's your husband explaining, I really need you to come bail me out of jail.
Well, you know what? In that moment, I felt like somebody I knew and loved died. I went into that kind of shock. Because I mean, there's just no way I could have ever even thought that something like this would happen. And so to get a phone call from jail, Gary telling me, it was a big mistake, that it didn't really happen. I knew. I went into that kind of shock that says, you know what, something is desperately wrong, and I guess we need to find out what.
Yeah, and I'm sure you want to believe, but you're telling me what that intuition was there, that, maybe this makes some sense now, what has happened over the course of the last few years, and
Right.
and maybe I should have seen these signs before. Is that what happened?
Yes, pretty much so. I mean, I knew that we had to find out what was going on, that there had been some odd behaviors that I had questions about. And so it was about really finding somebody who could educate us about what was going on and to proceed from there.
Gary, it's interesting in the book, and the book is Sexual Addiction, One Couple's Journey to Discover the Strategies for Healing. And we talk about the incident, and we talk a lot in the book. They talk a lot in the book about strategies for healing. The website is strategiesforhealing.com. Book's available at Amazon. You talk as you're leaving that night, when your wife comes and picks you up, you're basically portraying yourself as the victim. This is not right. This should not have happened. I didn't do anything wrong. Explain why you would. Tell me if you actually felt that. If deep down you felt that, or whether you knew something was there and you were just trying to cover it.
Well, the sad part is, Rick, yes, I did feel that. And that's what I did believe. And that is the foundation of denial, is I was lying to myself, not only lying to Sharon, I was also lying to even the police officer, saying, trying to explain to them what I was really doing, where in fact, that's not what I was doing.
Do you become a believable liar?
Oh, yes, very much so. I lived my entire life as a liar. And the foundation of my addiction was lying. And the hardest part, more than anything else, is not only admitting that I lied, but in fact admitting that I live a lie and I must change. And if I don't change, everything else will be destroyed.
Let's talk about what happens up to that point. Are there warning signs that you can, when you're counseling with men, that you were saying these are the things to watch for as you look back as this progressed and actually to an extent took over your life? Are there warning signs that we should be looking for? Because everybody thinks it's harmless. I can look, I can go away and not have to come back or feel addicted to come back for any reason. Are there signs when, okay, maybe this is becoming an addiction?
Yes, and one of the primary signs that I really want to let our audience recognize is their isolation. And it could be male or female. So, like my lovely wife said, it's not exclusive to men. So, if the spouse or the person that we are actually engaged with or in connection with, are they isolating? And that could be isolating physically, emotionally, or maybe in conversations. Are they isolating and staying with the justification that, oh, I need to work later, I have to work later, I have a special activity I need to do on the weekends and things like that? That is isolation. That's the first warning sign.
Sharon and Gary Worrell are our guest on This Week in America. The book is a fascinating one. It's Sexual Addiction, One Couple's Journey to Discover the Strategies for Healing. They lay their whole personal situation out there in hopes, and they've been able in counseling to a number of people. People can relate, and they reach out and realize we do have some problems. We need to get these addressed. And Sharon, I want to talk about, there was a very vivid scene in the book where there's a counseling session, and they're saying to Gary that you are a sexual addict. And you're thinking, that's hard to believe because Gary doesn't even seem to like sex.
Right. And that's that anorexic piece of where the addict begins to, like Gary was talking about, isolate from relationship, isolate from intimacy, isolate socially. And because he's going more and more into his addictive behaviors and the things that he's getting connected to.
The book is Sexual Addiction, One Couple's Journey to Discover the Strategies for Healing. It's available at Amazon.com, strategiesforhealing.com, their website. A lot of great information there, as well as information on getting the book. And as we sort of move forward in your story in talking about recovery, this is not something that happens overnight, is it? I believe, between the two of you, 3 to 4 years of sort of through that initial recovery period. Sharon, is that how long it normally
right.
takes?
I was in a partners group for 3 years. Gary was in a therapy group. He was in personal counseling, accountability, and then he went to a therapy group, but pretty much the better part of 4 years.
Yeah, at least 4 years. Mm-hmm.
Gary, you said that knowledge informs, but revelation transforms. That's an interesting phrase that you coined during this process. Explain that and explain when you found out really what was going on, how it really turned your life around.
Well, the knowledge that I had a problem, I've been struggling with this issue since I was 8 years old. I knew that for quite a while. The sad part is, yes, I was informed that it was a struggle of mine. However, every time I tried to get help, no one was able to give me any kind of helpful information until the revelation that this is a life or death issue. It would either kill my relationship with my wife, it would kill my relationship with anyone else, it would kill my future. And that revelation, also with the fact that I had some people speaking real truth into my life that actually was able to speak into my heart. And that revelation is what opened my eyes and motivated me to do what was necessary. Until the revelation becomes personal and motivating me, it cannot transform a person or my life.
Sharon, in the book you talk about co-addiction, codependency. You were talking about facing your I-ams. As the spouse, talk about what you went through.
Well, I was very angry, of course. And coming into a group, I went to a group of partners. It was a partner recovery group. That was a therapy group that I went to every week. And it was because I needed education. And I went there because I needed education. But when I got there, it's that check-in where people say, hi, my name is Sharon, and I am in recovery from codependency. Well, I didn't even know what codependency was. So it's I am mothering, I am enabling, I am rationalizing, and so I spent the better part of the next year really getting in touch with what I am, and how to really recover my heart through that and become healthier and less dysfunctional.
Sharon, at some point, someone said to you, it'll be on down the line, but at some point, you're going to realize that and get down on your knees and thank God that the problem was discovered and you were able to work on that. how difficult is it to get to the point where, okay, I'm really grateful this happened when it did because it saved our relationship?
Well, it's not, we do, as women, we do become grateful that our husbands were caught, that everything could come into the light, that everything could be uncovered, and that there could be a process of healing. Now, I have to tell you, Rick, that all the time, only 2% of couples that struggle with sexual addiction actually come to a restored marriage. We happen to be 2%, in that 2%. But we feel like half of the problem of coming to, of not being able to get to that restored relationship or marriage is education. People are not educated about what sexual addiction is and what it takes to recover from it.
Gary, let me ask you that same question. Was there a point when you realized this has been painful, this has been humiliating, but I am grateful it happened because it needed to. I was going down a path to destruction.
Yes, it was hard for me to face, and that's part of the denial process. And in that denial process, I had to come to the death of myself and understand that, I am unable to do this by myself. I've tried and tried and tried, and it continually got worse. And the more I asked for help, the worse it got, because no one really could accept the fact that this was a real issue, a real problem. And because of that, I was unwilling to expose, I thought I was willing, but actually I was unwilling to expose how it was destroying my life. And like my wife said, I needed education, but I couldn't find it. In the process of being educated, I also needed to have other people that I could be accountable to and would support me and empower me so I could take the steps necessary to fulfill the actual recovery.
One of those steps is looking for people like Sharon and Gary. Their website is strategiesforhealing.com. Just a minute or so left in the program. And I'll ask both of you. I'll start with Sharon. It has to be very rewarding on your part that you're able to step in the room and work with these people, and you can deal from knowing what they're going through, the hurt, the uncertainty they're going through. It's not somebody who studied this in a textbook and they're trying to relate to these people. You know their pain.
Absolutely. And there's really nobody that can help somebody through something like if you've been there, done that. And, we know what it takes to recover from it. And we have enough faith that even with people with extreme behaviors, that they actually can come to a place of healing.
And Gary, I'm assuming that you've seen it all, you've heard it all. When you step in that room and you talk to these gentlemen and you've been there and you listen to their stories, and I'm sure you can probably tell right away whether these people are in denial or whether they're facing the situation that you did.
Oh, exactly. And what I feel is important, I do want to relate with them. However, I want them to understand there is hope, because many times by the time they come to our office, there is no hope. And they're so devastated and demoralized, and they're not in a place where they can even see any possibility of things getting better. And that's why we really want them to see, yes, it's a terrible place. Guess what? There is hope, and we are living proof. Now, of course, our book is our story, but also we are continually living proof.
The book is Sexual Addiction, One Couple's Journey to Discover the Strategies for Healing. It is excellent. The book is available at their website, strategiesforhealing.com. You can go to Amazon. You can read a little bit, a table of comments, contents, that type of thing, and learn more about the book. It's a guide that will get you, if you're concerned about this, families dealing with this, it'll get you going in the right direction, give you two real-life people, and you've just had the opportunity to see and to hear them talking about what they went through and how they came out in a better position and a position to help other people. Sharon, Gary, such a pleasure to have you on the program. We look forward to having you back on the program. Keep up the good work, and thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you
very much, Rick. Hope you have a good day.
Thank you. You too. You're listening to This Week in America on the Blue Funk Broadcasting Radio Network.